Hello, MYM Insiders. Good morning. How are you doing today? This is Rich Harshoff here for our Strategic Marketing webinar. And we're going to cover a topic today. As you can see on your screen, part one of a topic. It's a two-part topic. It's called Headline Starters. And this is sort of part of our Back to the Basics series for covering some concepts that from the, from the MYM standpoint go back, gosh, nearly 20 years, but the principles never change. So to revisit these items for the vast majority of you on this webinar, or who may be listening to it after the fact via recording in the magic of the interwebs, it may be the first time that you're encountering this. So we had this scheduled, this is going to sound kind of funny, we had this scheduled to run this particular webinar in November of 2012, about a year and a half ago. And for some reason, it didn't happen. So we're going to do this today, and we're going to do part two of Headline Starters coming up. And I think this is going to be interesting stuff. So let me just give you an idea of what we're talking about with Headline Starters. We've got, in our MYM methodology, we've got several different ways to write headlines. The easiest way is what I call the headline bank. We've also got John Smith headlines, which we've covered earlier this year, I believe. Headline starters, it goes back to the concept of when I was a kid, and you see this picture on the screen right now, of what was called a fire starter, where you would take this kerosene-soaked piece of compressed wood, and if you could get your match on that thing, it would light on fire. Even if it was raining and the weather was terrible or whatever adverse conditions, if you could at least get your match lit and you could stick it on that headline, that fire starter, you had a pretty good chance to start a fire. And this is what the headline starters are all about. They're really sort of like that kerosene-soaked piece of compressed wood, something that gives you ideas for writing headlines very quickly. And to put full disclosure out there, over the course of my career, I would say that the headline starters have been my go-to formula for writing headlines more often than not. Now, if I'm sitting there writing an identity or I'm writing some kind of specific marketing piece, I will usually use just what I call a plain English headline, where I'll look at the situation and just craft a headline out of thin air that suits the situation. However, if I'm writing in an environment where I need lots of headlines, like a hopper system or multiple ads or a campaign, I will frequently go to the headline starters, because it's such a great and easy way to get great ideas to write lots of headlines very, very quickly. In fact, if you look at the MYM methodology workbook, which I'm not going to show you today, but you can look it up on our Insider portal, then you'll see that these headline starters are, in fact, one of the important parts of that methodology. So with that background, I'm going to give you an idea of how we do this and give you several examples of how it works. Before we do that, just a little backup on the concept of the headline in the first place. This is sort of a basic review, but a headline is the ad for the ad. All the ads in every medium have to have a headline. And if you go back to MYM methodology, MYM philosophy, and you understand the nuts and bolts of how it works, it's what we call an activator. It paints a mental picture, interrupts the prospect, gives them an idea of what they can expect to find in the rest of the ad, okay? We want it to be hot button oriented and appropriate for the educational spectrum. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about what that means. We've got a MYM live training session coming up sometime later on this fall, and you can attend that if you want to get into a lot of depth on hot buttons and educational spectrum. For now, I want you just to think in terms of the headline starters, and I'll give you a little bit of information about hot button orientation as we go through this a little bit later today. Subheadlines promise to further educate the prospect. These are the engaging tools, and lets the reader know it's not a false beta. Again, I don't want to take the time on today's webinar to go through these concepts of alpha, beta, reticular activator, activators, false betas, interrupt, engage, educate, offer. But if you'll if you'll go back and read Monopolize Your Marketplace or some of the foundational MYM stuff, you'll find that information. That's good information to have. It's not mission critical to understand the headline starters that we're going to go through today, okay? So let's take a look at what the headline starters are. Originally, there were 12, and those are the 12 that we're going to go through today. So I'll put them on the screen. In fact, this is actually not true. Originally, there were 12, but they were not these specific 12. Going back to the late 1990s, we put together a set of 12 headline starters. Then somewhere in the neighborhood of the mid-2000s, the mid-aughts as you might call them, came in and created 12 or maybe even 14 more headline starters. So there's a total now of either 24 or 26. I think it's 26. So these are sort of the foundational first headline starters. And then the next time we cover this topic in a month or two, then we'll go into the other headline starters that you can also use in your toolbox, okay? So here's what they are: news, statistics, how-to, questions, who, which, what, why, testimonials, guarantees, comparisons, bold claims, problem identification, numbers, and the offer. The idea behind the headline starter is very simple. What you do is you look at the category, for instance, news, statistics, how-to, whatnot, and you write a headline for whatever topic you're writing about that uses that concept as a starter for the headline. So, for instance, if you were going to write a headline based on news, you would make that headline sound sort of news-ish. Now, I'm going to give you examples of all this stuff as we go through this. If you were going to write a statistic-based headline based on the headline sort of statistics, you would look at some sort of a statistic that you could engineer or find or research to put into a given headline, and so on and so forth. So without much further ado, let's hop in and let's give you some examples of how this works. So let's start with the first one, which is news. And I'm going to just read several headlines that will give you an idea of what this looks like. New is the key word here. New FDA-approved laser process whitens teeth 6 to 12 shades in just 3 hours and is guaranteed for 5 years. And again, it's written in the format of news, and you can see clearly that it says the word new. Here's another way to do it. Finally, there's an executive housing facility that has all the luxuries of a 5-star hotel, has the staff that responds in 3.5 minutes, and only costs 1/3 what you normally pay at a hotel. Now, I want you to think about that headline for just a second. Executive housing facility has the luxuries of a 5-star hotel, staff that responds in 3.5 minutes, costs 1/3 of you normally pay at a hotel. That's pretty breakthrough if you look at it, and so we put it in the form of news, okay? Introducing is another way, introducing the 5-day pay raise, and then the subheadline on that, only CENTOS Intensive Pro course will get you trained and ready to pass your MCSE certification test in just 5 days, hence the 5-day pay raise. So look at the commonality of these three headlines: new, finally, introducing. It doesn't have to sound like, you know, World News Tonight featuring Tom Brokaw or anything like that, but it's just written in the format of news, okay? There's another one using introducing, the quickest, easiest, least expensive way to get your company on the web. Innovative new wall building system makes homes fly off the shelf. Innovative new wall building system makes homes fly off the shelf. So you get an idea of how this works. That's number one. It's news. Let's move on to number two, statistics. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the 12, give you some examples. Then we're going to go back and we're going to write headlines for various industries using each of the different headline starters. Okay, so for statistics, 25% of all underground heating oil tanks are leaking right now. Now this is for a company that comes in and fixes leaking heating oil tanks. Go figure. 25%. Now I'll give you a couple of words of advice on statistics. My advice is, when you're writing the headline, don't sweat too much what the actual statistic is. Don't let the statistic bog you down. Make it up or estimate what it is, and then go back and research it later. Okay, so if I don't know if it's exactly 25%, I don't want to stop and research that particular statistic while I'm writing the headline. I'm just going to use the number 25%. Now, one more piece of advice on statistics. If a statistic is unprovable, then go ahead and feel free to make it up with the following caveats. Number one, if it's a legal environment where precision is mandatory, then you probably don't want a made-up headline. Number two, in an environment where it is not legally sensitive to have a precise researched headline, then go ahead and make it up, but make sure that it represents what you feel is at least very close to an accurate statistic. The reason that you can do this and get away with this, not that we're trying to get away with anything, but the reason you can do this is because if it's not a statistic that's available, then nobody's going to have the ability to challenge your number because they won't know either. So I'll give you a couple of examples. 94% of all roofing materials lose their warranty the second the first hailstone falls. Now, I don't know if we can research that out across the board and come up with a definitive number, but we can do some cursory research and come up with a statistic that is based on our own research, okay? Next, last year there were 3,422 complaints and lawsuits filed against moving companies, and that is a researchable number. The cost to produce a professional corporate video has fallen by 64% in the last 5 years, yet most companies are still clinging to and charging you $19.99 prices. Actually, the first time I wrote this headline was in, I think it was in 1996, and we had the word 1991. What a great headline. This was a company, of course, that was producing corporate videos, and this was a statistic that we found, is that it cost a lot less, but the prices had stayed constant. So just an interesting way to look at it. Our competency test is so stringent that 77% of applicants fail. Guess who our competitors are hiring? This would be a great headline for a remodeling company that has strict hiring qualifications for technicians or for service people or whatever the case may be, okay? Let's move to the third one, how to. This is probably the easiest headline starter of them all because all you've got to do is say how to. How to goof-proof your investment portfolio. How to quit smoking for good without willpower, drugs, or cravings, and without getting fat. How to make money while doing what you love to do. How to do all your Christmas shopping in 5 minutes or less. How my ugliest, stinkiest, most obnoxious sales rep increased his commissions by almost 280% last year. Now, here's what you're going to see as you start writing headline starter headlines. You're going to see that sometimes you start to combine multiple headline starters. This 280% is a statistic. So I've got a statistic and a how-to. I also am using one of the headline starters that we'll encounter next time we do this exercise, not on this webinar, but on the next one, which is inflammatory, ugliest, stinkiest, most obnoxious sales rep. It's a pretty inflammatory way to say something. So we've got multiple headline starters going, and that's okay. You don't need to get bogged down about which headline starter is it, this one, that one, or the other one. It doesn't really matter. It really just matters that you've got a good way to learn how to write headlines. So let's move to number 4, is questions. I find questions to be one of the most powerful ways to write headlines because if you pose the question the right way, it causes the prospect to think. Do you really want the lowest bidding temp agency to provide employees for your $1 million project? Now, think about the thought that it sparks in the prospect. Talking about a temp agency that may have sensitive projects. Do you want the lowest bidding temp agency providing employees for your $1 million project? It's a juxtaposition of ideas that allows the prospect to see the foolishness of going with the lowest bid. Is your current cleaning company cutting corners but still charging you full price? I like the alliteration with all the C's. Is your current cleaning company cutting corners? That's kind of cute. I don't know that we have a headline starter that's called alliteration, but there it is anyway. But again, it causes the prospect to think. Next, are you committing these 4 critical advertising sins? That's a curiosity approach. It makes me want to look to see what the 4 advertising sins might happen to be. It also uses a very interesting word, sins. Instead of mistakes, instead of problems, whatever, we use the word sin because it is a higher elevation, sort of interesting word. Would you be willing to spend 8 minutes a day to increase your income by $25,000 next year? Again, it's more of a curiosity type approach. How many more no-show employees will you tolerate from your temp agency before you fire them? I love this headline. It's got a lot of interesting language in it. It uses the phrase tolerate as if to imply that they are doing something that is avoidable. They're tolerating it, but they really don't have to, okay? But the headline starter is questions. Very powerful way to write headlines. If you remember back to our discussion on John Smith headlines, half of our headlines were questions. We took first-person headlines, first-person statements and made them into questions. Then we made them into second-person statements, and then finally into second-person questions. If you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, what I just said, you'll want to go back and research and look up our webinar on John Smith headlines and review that as well. Another great resource for headline writing. Next, this is a headline starter called Who, What, Which, Why. And I created this by simply writing a bunch of headlines that started with who, what, which, or why, and thinking that's an interesting category. So here we go. What's your reason for wanting to start your own business? Whoops. Here's what doctors do when they feel rotten. 6 kinds of hair loss patterns. Which do you suffer from? Who else wants to double their advertising results without increasing their expense? Why most teenagers think their parents are out to get them. Who, what, which, why. You simply take the words who, what, which, and or why, and put them into the headline. Number 6 is a testimonial. This is a good way to make sure that you've got testimonials that are hot button oriented, okay? My opinion is you'd be foolish to pay $200 less for a cabinet that can be broken into in 90 seconds flat. This goes back to my days of writing marketing for a video game cabinet supplier. This goes back to mid to late 1990s, believe it or not. It's going back a ways. But they had a cabinet that was reinforced. It was not easy to break into, and the problem with their competitors' video game cabinets is that they were easy to break into, and the piece of equipment called the logic board, which was the electronic guts and brains of the video game that held the actual game, could be broken into and stolen very easily with their competitors, but their competitors cost less money. So this is a good way to show, hey, there's a value. Headline starter, it's a testimonial. Next, my losses from bounced checks have dropped from over $1,000 a month to an average of just $130. This is for a product called Check Collect. How a company that designs, makes, and delivers custom boxes in less than 4 hours saved my job. I've read over 250 books on the subject of personal finance, investing, and money, and none of them is as powerful as this short 42-minute audio tape. Again, that headline goes back to the days of audio tapes. We might make that an online video or a CD or some other downloadable podcast in this day and age, but the headline is still good. It's a testimonial. Testimonial. Notice how specific these testimonials are. They're not just general, hey, I love your cabinets, or Check Collect is a great service, or I love your box company, or this is a great audio tape. There's a lot more grit and a lot more granularity to these. That's what makes them powerful. I thought a discount broker would offer far less services than a traditional one. Boy, was I wrong. The 7th headline starter is simply the guarantee. The guarantee is pretty simple. Custom boxes on your dock in 4 hours or less, guaranteed. We just use the word guarantee. Your home or office cool in 3 hours, or you don't pay a dime. It's a different way to say the word guarantee, but it certainly means the same thing. If the diamond ring you buy from Plateau Jewelers doesn't appraise for at least 3 times what you paid for it, we'll immediately give you a refund. The guarantee is sort of woven into the context of that headline. Shave as close as a blade or your money back. That's a famous line from the 70s, if you watched TV back then. Post-date your check for 30 days. We won't cash it until you give us your personal okay. Just another way to guarantee something that is purchased. Okay. Next is comparisons. We've got 12. We're on number 8. Percentage of CNE candidates who certify before the end of our program. Us, 96%. Them, 21%. We're a little bit higher. You'll also notice when we revisit headline starters on our next webinar that this is also a different headline starter, which is parenthetical comments. What we do is we use the parenthetical comment to make almost essentially a sarcastic remark that underpins the importance of the point that we're trying to make. We're a little bit higher, 96 versus 21. It's really just sort of a slap. Of course, you've heard of our hyper-concentrated pre-soaks, but have you heard about affordable hyper-concentrated pre-soaks? That's some kind of weird words in there that you might not be familiar with, but this is another client we had in years gone by. This is a company that sold car wash soaps, and they sold them to commercial car washes. Hyper-concentrated pre-soak was a certain type of car wash soap, okay? Next, our top 3 competitors all failed the 15-second safe test. Call us and we'll send you a video so you can see for yourself. Again, updating for today's day and age, we might put that online. When it comes to off-site meetings, compared to hotels, there's no comparison. Only one meeting facility was conceived, designed, and built specifically for business meetings. That's City Place. Comparisons. Next is the bold claim. The only thing we've left off our gold medal foosball table is the ridiculous price. Eliminate temporary worker headaches forever. You see, we're making this very bold, powerful, succinct, specific claim. New golf ball banned from tour play, flies too far. I've created what I consider to be the perfect designer-friendly showroom. Take 90 seconds to see if you agree. And then finally, we can reduce or eliminate your sales tax audit by up to 83%, even if you've already contested it and won. If you understand that industry, sales tax, and there's also a property tax version of this, but sales and property tax auditing, if you understand this concept, is very strong. We're trying to go to people that have said, hey, I've already audited it, I don't need another audit, and we're telling them, no, we can get you even more, okay? The 10th one is problem identification. If your box order is late, you could be fired. Just letting people know what the situation is so that they can understand. Most car wash soaps will eat cars, corrode parts, and injure people. There's a 70% chance that you paid too much for sales tax last year, and we can get it back for you. That's the nature of the problem. You can recover money from your property tax bill even if you already contested it and won. Thieves are waiting for your exposed logic boards. All it takes is a screwdriver to lose $3,000. Again, going back to the video game cabinet client. Let's move on to 11 and 12. 11 is what I call numbers. And what you do with numbers is you simply create a number. 6 closely guarded secrets of the diamond industry revealed at last. This is actually one of the very first headlines I ever wrote 20-something years ago for a friend of mine that was selling diamonds wholesale from his house. And I wrote this headline. It's a good headline still. The 3 biggest problems you'll have with most plumbers and how Mr. Burroughs overcomes them all. Never sign a contract that contains these 5 words. Only 5 out of 573 multi-tenant buildings in the Atlanta area have immediate large block leasing capacity. Run out of boxes? Here's 4 excuses that will work with your boss and 1 that won't. So we've just got different ways to use numbers. 3 problems, 6 secrets, 5 words in a contract, 5 out of 573 multi-tenant buildings, 4 excuses that will work. Again, these are just ideas to help you write headlines quickly, okay? Number 12 is the offer/promo. Any 2 pairs of eyeglasses for only $79.99 includes the eye exam. Which 3 of these $14.99 bestsellers do you want for 99 cents each? You can fly from Dallas to Austin for $29 each way or $49 each way. Which do you prefer? Whoops. Now you can produce an 8-minute professional corporate video for $44.95, less than half of what you'll pay anywhere else. Now you can perfect your vision with LASIK laser correction for only $9.95, limited to the first 100 callers. So we just bake the promotion or the offer into the headline. Pretty simple stuff. All right, so let's go through an example. This is a company that sells water purification process for dentists. Here's a situation. They invented a water purification system that's light years beyond anything on the market. They want to sell it to dentists to combat what they call the biofilm problem. Now, let me tell you what the biofilm problem is. If you're a dentist and you've got a water hose that you squirt water into people's mouths, then that hose will get biofilm buildup inside the hose. Now, if you want to know what biofilm is, just think about a river, and a river that has rocks in it. When you step on the rock, it's really slippery. The crap that makes that rock slippery in a river is roughly the same thing that biofilm is that can be found inside that dentist tube. Now, this company created a water purification system that purifies the water before it hits the tube, and it actually causes the water to become medical grade, and it actually sterilizes things that it comes in contact with. Okay, so the water itself becomes a sterilization agent. Okay, it's more effective. Like it says here, not only cleans the water, but causes it to sterilize what it comes in contact with. It fits under the counter. It's cheaper to use than regular water purification, and it limits exposure by killing diseases and biofilm. So this is a pretty interesting product, and we want to go out there and talk to dentists about it, but we need to write a bunch of headlines. So let's start with news. Okay? Finally, there's a water purification system for dentists that actually prevents biofilm and only takes up 2 cubic feet of space and costs less than $260 a day to own and operate. Pretty straightforward. Statistics. 64% of all dentists are contaminated biofilm-laced water in their patients' mouths, and they don't even know it. That's going to get the attention of the dentist, I hope. How to is number 3. How to get surgical clean water that actually, sterilizes everything it makes contact with without mortgaging your house and without bulky purifiers. And then finally, questions. Looking for a low-cost way to eliminate biofilm problems from your practice. Interested in creating surgical quality sterilized water for less than $260 a day. Look no further. Questions. Next, who, which, what, why? Which deadly biofilm-related diseases would you like to protect your patients from? Testimonials. I've earnestly searched for a solution to the deadly biofilm problem. For the last 12 years, I practiced dentistry, and I've come up completely empty until now. Guarantee surgical quality water for less than $260 a day. Guaranteed to never form biofilm, or we'll pay you $100,000 cash. It's pretty good. Money where your mouth is kind of a headline. Comparisons. You can pay $2,200 for a water purification system that doesn't eliminate biofilm, or $260 a day for one that creates surgical quality water that sterilizes everything it comes in contact with. Which do you prefer? Next, the bold claim. New technology lowers biofilm to less than 10 CFUs per milliliter, 6 times less than anything else ever seen on this planet. Bold claim. Problem. Do you realize that almost every single dentist in the country is liable to make their patients sick due to biofilm in their water lines? It's a true problem, by the way. You're going to probably get sick at your dentist next time you go. Eliminate these 6 deadly biofilm-related diseases completely by this time tomorrow. To offer. Put this machine in your office for less than $260 a day and eliminate every imaginable biofilm threat, including AIDS, hepatitis, and then whatever the other ones are, and the lawsuits that go with them. Okay? So now let's think in terms of hot buttons. So you're working through your methodology. You come up with, let's say, 3 or 4 hot buttons in each of the major categories: benefits of ownership, objections to ownership, vendor selection. So now you've got anywhere from, let's say, 9 to 15 hot buttons. So what you can do is then go through and write headlines on a hot button by hot button basis. Okay? So let's look at an industry called replacement windows. That ought to be pretty familiar to many of you on this call. The objection to ownership is that people don't realize that windows are the cause of their energy problems. This is a big hot button. A lot of times people are out there writing marketing about energy efficiency, but people don't even realize that the windows are the reason that their energy bills are high or that they're having problems in that regard. So when you start talking about energy efficiency, they just tune out. So what we've got to do is write headlines that help people understand that that is the cause. Okay? News, shocking discovery. High energy bills are not caused by high energy prices. That's an interesting way to look at it. Statistics, 90% of homeowners are not aware that high energy bills are primarily caused by inefficient windows. How to instantly cut your electric bill by 40% without switching power companies and without turning lights off. Questions, want to guess what the #1 cause of high electric bills is. Hint, it has nothing to do with the electric company's rates. Now here's an interesting scenario. If you look at these 4 headlines, only one of the 4 even mentions windows. Okay? Who, which, what, why? What is the real cause of your high electric bill? Believe it or not, it has nothing to do with what electric company you choose. My electric bill went from $404 last year to just $268 this year, and I only made one simple change in my home. I can guarantee you a 40% reduction in your electric bill without having to switch electric companies or turn off lights. If your Attorney General disapproves of energy savings claims, you've got two options. Number one, don't use them. Or number two, provide proof via documented reductions of energy bills from your own personal client. That would be preferential, okay? Comparisons. The windows on your home are the energy-sucking equivalent of a Hummer H2 stuck in stop-and-go traffic. Next, bold claim. Your windows are sucking money out of your house. Here's a quick and easy way to slash your electric bill by 30 to 40% without switching electric companies. Numbers. Every window in your house is costing you $10 more than it should in electricity. If you have 20 windows, you're wasting $200. Quantifying things in a way that people can understand. Offer. Free window meter test will tell you if your windows are wasting your money or not. Okay, so it's a pretty straightforward process. But what we've done here in this case is we've done it hot button by hot button. So instead of just saying, hey, let's just randomly write headlines for this company, we've looked at that particular hot button. And it allows us to create this tremendous pool of headlines that we can draw from as we go to write headlines, as we go to write advertisements now or in the future. Let's look at another hot button for a company that is in receivables financing. Here's the situation. Benefits of ownership. Easy, inexpensive way to access money to grow your business, okay? This is a company that does something similar to factoring, but what they allow you to do is go online, look at your receivables, and then choose the specific receivables that you would like to sell to this company at a specific amount on a per receivable basis based on the likelihood of that money coming in soon, okay? I don't know if that makes sense just on a very cursory explanation, but that's what they do. News, you can access funds to grow your business at the click of a button and receive funds the same day. 85% of small business owners run into cash flow problems at least occasionally, probably 100%. How to get money to run your business immediately at a rate of less than 1%. And the reason that is possible is because when you go in to sell your receivables at a discount, you can choose receivables that are likely to come in based on the aging report within the next week or two from companies that have a credit rating that shows that they're very likely to make that payment within a specific time range. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm going to sell this receivable and who knows when it's going to be collected, you can go in and say, hey, I do business with XYZ company and they're rated highly in terms of payment and they're likely, based on history, to pay this bill within 66 days, and this bill has been outstanding for 59 days, so statistically it's going to be collected in 6 days. So it's a shorter loan, and so it has a lot lower interest rate, if that makes sense. Okay? Question, do you need more money to pay suppliers and payroll and grow your business? Why continue to pay suppliers and payroll when you can easily access funding? Why continue to pay suppliers and payroll when you can easily access funding at the click of a mouse? That sounds a little bit weird. Since I started using Smart Fund Business, I've never missed a 10-day 2% discount. Guaranteed fastest and easiest way to reduce stress in your business. Comparisons, you can sweat out payroll and paying suppliers again, or you can instantly access funding at the click of a mouse. Interesting. Bold claim, your cash flow problem can be completely gone by this time next week. You need to pay suppliers and payroll. We want to give you easy access to capital. Any questions? You can receive an advance on a $10,000 receivable for as little $80 in fees and interest. That's an interesting way to spin those numbers so that people can see that it really is quite affordable. $10,000 for $80 in fees and interest. Pretty amazing if you think about it. Free information kit shows how to instantly access capital to grow your business. Okay. Let's do another example for daycare service. The hot button we're going to explore on this one is the staff. News, introducing the only daycare that not only requires 100% staff CPR training monthly, but also invites you to come learn with us. 36% of daycare workers would fail their background checks if they were actually checked. How to find a daycare that will love and care for your child the same way you do. How to. Questions. How many failed background check staff members are acceptable for your child's daycare center? So here's what you're hopefully seeing as we go through all these, you're seeing that we can take the hot button for a given company, and we can very quickly and easily write these headlines using the various headline starters. It just makes it that much easier. Instead of staring at a blank page, it's a good, easy way to come up with something that allows you to write more effectively, efficiently, and quickly. Who, which, what, why? Why would you settle for babysitters when you could have certified teachers watching and teaching your child all day? Continuing, we'll use a different hot button this time, staff-child ratio. Comparisons, number of children per staff member at XYZ, whatever the daycare is. 8, other daycare centers, 17, based on research, okay, don't just make that up. The bold claim, we cap our enrollment at 100 children to ensure that we can give your child personal care and attention. Problem identification, most daycare centers have so many children that the staff members don't know all their names. Numbers, 3 reasons other daycare centers have such high staff turnover and we don't. Free report shows how to ensure the optimal teacher-child ratio. Let's move on to another hot button for the same industry. Facilities. News, introducing the first daycare center in Southlake with a movie theater and indoor pool. 78% of parents say their children dread going to daycare because it's boring. How to keep your children entertained and get them educated at the same time while at daycare. Questions. Want a daycare facility that has plenty of activities to keep your child occupied all day long. And finally, who, which, where, what, why, which activities would you like for your child? Arts and crafts, computers, playground sports, you can have them all. Okay? And another one, learning versus playing. Guarantee your child will be reading at first grade level by the time she reaches kindergarten. Comparisons, number of books in our library, 844. Number of books in most daycare libraries, less than 100. We don't believe in children watching TV while at daycare. We prefer to teach them something. Bold claim, okay? Problem identification. Don't just leave your child with a babysitter all day. Demand care take. And then we can take these and put them into the ad templates. 36% of all daycare workers would fail a background check if they were given a background check. That is, this is from the headline starters that we took. And then we take the subheadlines and we can fill it out to whatever extent we need. Okay. 94% of daycare accidents are caused because of inadequate supervision. It should say, did you know the staff-child ratio at your daycare? Beware if it's more than 9-to-1. Most daycare centers versus our daycare center. Comparison. Headline starters. Is your daycare's idea of good educational curriculum watching Barney on TV? How would you like your child to be reading at a first grade level before starting kindergarten? Introducing a daycare. This is the headline starter. The headline starter, you can probably tell, is news. Introducing a daycare center that doesn't consider mac and cheese to be one of the 4 major food groups. Okay, then we can take it and make it into an actual advertisement. It's pretty simple stuff. Mommy, the food they give me at daycare is yucky. It's one of my favorite ads of all time. It features the boy with no arms, inexplicably. How much should you pay for a good daycare center? Pretty simple. And we put those into some postcards. 94% of all daycare accidents are caused because of inadequate supervision. Anyway, you get the idea. The idea is to get enough ammo to be able to be effective. Which would you rather be, this guy or this guy? And that's really the question. Okay. Let's go through one more example here. One more example. This will be closet organization. You don't want to just have a single bullet in your gun. You want to have massive firepower. And that's the idea of the headline starters and writing all these headlines, okay? Remember what I said earlier. I said when I sit down to write ads, if I have a single ad or an identity or something like that that I'm writing, I'll usually use a plain English approach and just write a headline out of thin air that fits the specific situation that I'm trying to talk about. However, if I am writing multiple headlines for a hopper system or a ad campaign and it requires lots of headlines, I almost always jump straight over to headline starters and let it rip, okay? So one more example This is for closet organization. Introducing the easiest, quickest, and least expensive way to clean up your cluttered closet. 77% of homeowners think that installing a closet organizing system will cost too much money. How to clean up all the junk in your closet permanently. Are you sick and tired of looking at all the junk cluttering up your closet? Question. Why continue to dwell in closet clutter when good organizing system is easy and inexpensive to install? It just seems like my day starts off better when I get dressed in my super clean, super organized closet from Closet Doctor. If you're not thrilled with your new organized closet, we'll pay to remove it and restore your crappy one at no cost to you. That's a little bit inflammatory. I kind of like it though. Cluttered, dirty, junky, messy, disorganized. Your closet now. Clean, crisp, organized. Your closet this time next week. Bold claim, more personal value and satisfaction than remodeling your kitchen. If you think a closet organizing system costs too much, you are freaking wrong. 175 pairs of shoes, every single one has its own little cubby. Install this month and receive $300 of accessories, your choice. And that's it. We have finished it. I will take any questions that you have. And if we don't have any questions, we will talk to you next time. Let's see. Let's go to my questions thingy-majigger. Whoa. Hang on just a second. Nope, I don't see any questions. Any questions? Any questions? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times? All right. Thanks for participating in our webinar today. This will be recorded. It actually has already been recorded. It will be edited, though, and then put on our portal within about 24 hours or so. So thank you for participating, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye now.